Far away from Earth, in a dark and frozen corner of the galaxy, there was a planet called Valtora. It was always cold there. Snow never melted. The wind never stopped. Huge mountains of ice stood like sleeping giants, and the ground was covered in white for as far as eyes could see. On this planet lived the Krythar, a race of large, powerful alien snow leopards. They were not like animals from Earth. They were smart. They could speak in their own deep, growling language. They built icy homes inside caves and hunted giant frost creatures to survive. Among them lived a very rare Krythar. His name was Varlek. Varlek was different. His fur was pure white, with no gray or black spots. His eyes were bright blue, glowing a little even in the dark. His body was huge and strong, but his face always looked tired. Why? Because Varlek was in pain. Terrible, never-ending pain. For many years, one of his long teeth, his canine tooth, had been slowly rotting from the inside. But this was no normal sickness. His tooth had been damaged during an old war with a machine-based alien race. Tooth had something inside it, tiny war machines called nanites. They were still alive, still hurting him. No healer on Valtora could help. If they tried to remove the tooth, the nanites would explode into his jaw and spread poison. The other Krythar told him to be brave. They said the pain made him strong. But Varlek was tired of being strong. Every night he climbed the highest rock near his den and looked at the stars. Then he would roar. His roar was loud. It shook the ice. It made snow fall from trees. But it was not the roar of a king. It was the roar of a broken heart. He could no longer eat properly. He hunted slower. His head hurt every day. Sometimes when no one was looking, he closed his eyes and wished for sleep to take him forever. The other Krythar respected him, but they also feared him. He growled at anyone who came too close. Even his own brother stopped visiting. But Varlek did not care anymore. He only waited for something.
Yes.
One night as a strange moonlight glowed over the snowy land, he roared again. His voice carried far across the mountains, across the sky, even across space. That same night, on a distant space station near Earth, a girl sat quietly near a radio. Her name was Mira. She heard his roar not with her ears, but with her heart. She felt a deep sadness in it, a call for help, a cry that had waited many years for someone to answer. Back on Valtora, the cold wind howled through Varlek's den. He lay down with his head on the snow. His breath was slow. His jaw hurt like fire. Ow! He had roared so much he had no strength left, but high above him, a tiny light moved across the stars. A ship, small and silver, heading toward Valtora. Varlek didn't know it yet, but something was coming. Something he never expected. Not a weapon, not a warrior, not a healer, but a human girl, with a soft voice and gentle hands. And she was coming. For him, in a quiet corner of a space station called Gliese Edenine, a young girl named Mira was feeding a sick space dog. The animal had come from a damaged cargo ship and was afraid of everyone, but not Mira. She had a gift. Animals, even wild and angry ones, became calm near her. They listened when she spoke. Some scientists said she had a special kind of brain. Signal. Others said it was just luck, but Mira didn't care about science. She only knew that when something was hurting, she wanted to help. That night, after she finished feeding the dog, Mira sat near the old radio station in the corner of the lab. She liked to listen to strange signals from faraway planets. Most of them were just static or weird sounds from space. But this time, something was different. She heard a sound that was deep, loud, and full of emotion. It wasn't a machine. It wasn't a storm. It was a roar full of pain, a roar that sounded tired, still strong. A roar that reached into her heart. Mira's eyes widened. She turned up the volume. "What was that?" asked Dr. Yulin, one of the scientists nearby. Mira didn't speak. She just listened again. The roar came one more time, softer this time, like a cry for help. Mira slowly stood up. "That's not just a sound," she said. "That's someone in pain. Probably just wind or old satellite junk. But Mira didn't agree. No, I can feel it, like he's calling me. I don't know why, but feels like a big creature, hurt, cold, alone. The scientist sighed and walked away, shaking his head. But Myra couldn't forget the sound. Later that night, she looked up the signal's location. It came from a planet called Valtora, a frozen world with dangerous storms and almost no oxygen. Very few humans had ever visited it. It's too risky, said the commander, when Mira asked to go. I'm not afraid, she replied. You're just a teenager. I'm also the only one who heard him. The commander refused. At first, but after Mira begged and showed her research, he gave her a small exploration ship with just enough fuel for a one-way trip. You better come back, he said, handing her a space map. Mira smiled. I will, but first I need to help someone. Yes. She flew through space. Stars passed her window like falling sparks. She kept thinking about the roar. She didn't know what kind of creature it was. She didn't know if it was friendly. She didn't even know if it was still alive. But she believed in something deep. Inside her, the sound of pain doesn't lie. After many hours, her ship entered the cold orbit of Valtora. The planet looked like a giant snowball in space. Thick clouds covered the surface, and ice storms danced across the sky. She put on her warmest suit and prepared her small pack. Inside was a med kit, some soft food, and a few special tools she used to calm animals. Her ship landed on a flat, frozen plain. Wind howled outside. Everything was white and quiet. Mira stepped out and looked around. The cold touched her skin, but she didn't care. Somewhere on this icy world, a great creature was waiting. She didn't know his name. She didn't know his shape. But she had heard his heart, and she had come to answer it. The wind on Valtora was sharp like knives. It blew across Myra's helmet as she walked through the deep snow. Each step was slow. The snow was thick, and the cold air made her hands shake inside her gloves. But she kept walking. Mira didn't know where the creature was. She only had a signal tracker that followed the strange sound she had heard back on the space station. The signal was getting stronger now. She was close. Suddenly the wind grew quiet. Too quiet. Mira stopped walking. Her eyes looked around. The sky was dark with gray clouds, and the ice-covered trees stood like frozen statues. Then she heard it crunch. Snow moved behind her. She turned quickly. Nothing. Then another sound. This time in front of her. A deep growl. Myra stood still. Her heart started beating faster. The growl wasn't angry. It sounded tired. She took one slow step forward. Then, out of the trees, large shapes began to appear. Four-legged creatures with thick white fur, glowing eyes, and long tails. Their bodies were strong like lions, but their faces looked smarter, older, thoughtful. They were Krethar, the snow leopards of Valtora. One of them let out a low hiss. Another one stepped forward and sniffed the air. Mira didn't move. She slowly took off her helmet and let the cold hit her skin. She looked into the eyes of the closest beast and whispered, I'm not here to hurt you. The Krethar didn't understand her words, but they felt her tone soft, calm, and warm. Then the others began to step aside. A large figure walked between them. It was him, the Wek. He was much bigger than the rest. His white fur shimmered under the gray sky. His eyes were blue, glowing like fire trapped in ice. But his mouth was half open, and his lower jaw looked swollen. He walked slowly, carefully, like each step was painful. He stopped just a few feet from Myra. The other Krethar bowed their heads slightly, watching. Mira didn't speak. She just looked into his eyes, and Varlek looked back. In that moment, something passed between them. A strange connection. No words, no sounds, just feeling. She took a small step forward. Varlek didn't growl. She took another step and lifted her hand slowly. The big alien cat lowered his head just a little. Mira's fingers touched the side of his face. His fur was cold, but soft. His jaw twitched in pain. A soft whimper came from his throat, like a quiet cry. "I'm here," she said. "I heard you." Behind her, the wind picked up again. The other Krythar watched in silence. They had never seen their leader allow anyone so close, not even their own kind. But Varlek didn't move away. Mira carefully opened her pack. She pulled out a small scanner and pointed it near his mouth. The screen blinked. "Yes," she whispered. "It's his tooth. It's infected." Her voice trembled, but not from the cold. "He's been hurting for so long." Varlek's breathing was deep and slow. His eyes stayed locked on her. There was no anger in them now, only pain and hope. The wind howled again. Snow began to fall, but Myra didn't move. "I can help you," she said gently, "but you have to trust me." For a long moment, everything stood still. Then, Varlek did something no one expected. He bowed his head, not to a warrior, not to a king, but to a small human girl who heard his pain when no one else did. The wind outside the cave was loud, but inside, it was quiet and cold. Mira sat near Varlek's giant head. The other Krythar stayed outside, watching from the shadows. They trusted her now, but only because Varlek had trusted her. First, she opened her small bag and took out a silver scanner. It was about the size of her hand. A soft blue light blinked as she moved it close to Varlek's mouth. "Let me see what's hiding in there," she whispered. Varlek slowly opened his jaws. His breath was warm, but it smelled like old metal and sickness. Inside his mouth, Myra saw the problem clearly now. One of his long lower canine teeth was cracked near the base. It wasn't just broken, it was glowing. Soft red light pulsed from the center of the tooth like a heartbeat. The scanner beeped faster. Mira's eyes widened. "This is not natural," she said. She tapped on the screen. A warning appeared in red letters. "Foreign nanotech detected. Active. Dangerous." Mira swallowed hard. "No wonder you're in pain," she said. "There's something inside your tooth. A machine. Maybe a weapon." Varlek gave a soft growl, not angry, just tired. Mira kept scanning. Slowly, a picture formed on her screen. Inside the tooth, tiny black shapes were moving. Microscopic machines, called nanites. They were old, but still alive. They had built small wires through the root of the tooth and into the jaw. "They're not just causing pain," Mira said. "They're feeding on it." The machines were designed for torture. Maybe they were used long ago during the ancient war Valtora had faced. Someone had placed them in Varlek's body to make him suffer. Forever now, Mira understood why no healer could remove the tooth. If anyone tried, the nanites would explode, spreading poison through Varlek's blood. They would kill him. "I need to be careful," she whispered. "Very, very careful." Varlek's eyes were half closed. His body didn't move. He was trusting her completely. Myra took a deep breath and opened her small surgical kit. Inside were tools made for animals, a bone drill, fine tweezers, and a liquid that could pause nanotech for a few seconds. Not long, maybe 10 seconds at most, she looked at Varlek. "You will feel pain," she said softly, "but I'll be fast." Varlek didn't move. His breathing stayed slow. Mira leaned closer. She gently placed a freezing gel around the infected tooth. Then, carefully, she pushed a long silver needle into the center. It injected the nanotech-blocking liquid. The glow inside the tooth turned from red to blue. 10 seconds. She picked up the drill. Her hands were shaking. "Come on, Myra. You can do this," she told herself. The drill touched the tooth, where rare sparks flew. Strange sound came from inside the tooth like tiny screams. Varlek twitched. Myra worked fast. She drilled around the root, careful not to touch the nerves. 5 seconds she grabbed the tweezers. From her face, she pulled once, twice, then finally, pop. The tooth came out. Black mist floated from it, and the red glow returned. The nanites were waking up again, without thinking. Mira threw the tooth on the ground and smashed it with a metal rod. Crack. The ground shook. Then silence. Mira looked up. Varlek's eyes were closed. His body was still.
That
She thought maybe he had passed out, but then he let out a long, deep breath. His muscles relaxed. His face was calm. The pain was gone. Mira fell back, exhausted. Her hands were numb. Her eyes were wet. She had done it. She had ended his suffering, the pain he had lived with for so many years. Outside the cave, the wind stopped. Snowflakes fell gently, as if the planet itself had taken a deep breath, and the others waited, waiting for their leader to rise. The ice cave was quiet. Too quiet. Mira sat beside Varlek's giant body, breathing fast. Her hands were shaking. The broken tooth lay crushed behind her, black dust still floating in the cold air. The glowing red light was gone. She stared at Varlek. He wasn't moving. "Please," she whispered, "don't die." For a few seconds, her heart felt heavy. Maybe she had been too slow. Maybe the nanites had gone too deep. Then Varlek took a long, deep breath. His chest rose and fell. His jaw relaxed. His face looked peaceful. Mira let out a shaky laugh and covered her face with her hands. Tears filled her eyes. She had done it. She had saved him. She looked down at her hands, still covered in black dust from the infected tooth. Some of the dust was still glowing faintly. She quickly wiped it off and sealed it inside a small jar. She wanted to study it later. But not now. Now she waited. Varlek slowly opened his glowing blue eyes. He blinked twice, then turned his head and looked at Mira. There was no pain in his eyes. No anger, no fear, only calm. He slowly lifted his head and stood up. His movement was smooth, powerful, not stiff and tired like before. Outside the cave, the wind had stopped. Snowflakes fell gently from the sky. The air felt still, like the whole planet was waiting. A soft growl came from the cave entrance. One of the Krythar had returned. Then another, and another. Soon, a group of them stood. At the entrance, their glowing eyes watching silently, Varlek stepped forward and stood tall. He looked stronger than ever. His white fur moved gently in the wind. His jaw was no longer swollen. He opened his mouth wide, showing the gap where the bad tooth had been. A badge of honor, he looked at the sky and let out a loud, deep roar. But this time, it was not a roar of pain. It was a roar of freedom. The sound echoed across the snow, bouncing off the ice walls, carried by the cold air into the mountains. It was powerful. Beautiful. Alive, the other Krythar lifted their heads and joined him. One by one, they roared with him. The ground shook gently. Snow dropped from trees. Birds flew from the cliffs. Myra stood quietly, watching them. The sound was loud, but she wasn't afraid. She felt warm inside. She had never heard anything so wild, so strong, and so full of life. Then, something amazing happened. One of the older Krythar walked up to her and lowered his head. Another followed, then another. They were bowing. To her, Mira didn't know what to do. She looked at Varlek. He gave her a slow, deep nod. She stepped forward and the group opened a path. For her, she stood beside Varlek, small and soft, next to his tall, muscular frame. In their language, a deep growl mixed with clicks and hums. One of the Krythar spoke. Mira didn't understand the words, but the meaning was clear. She was now one of them. A young voice from the group whispered something in the old Krythar tongue. Garanath. Mira turned her head. What does that mean? She asked softly. Varlek looked at her, eyes glowing in the soft snowlight. The soul soother? Mira's heart skipped a beat. No one had ever called her something like that before. She didn't feel like a hero. She was just a girl who listened, a girl who cared. But now, on this far frozen world, she had a name, a place, and the respect of a mighty people. The pain that ruled Varlek's life for years was gone. And with that pain gone, something new was born. Hope. The frozen world of Valtora was quiet after the roar. Snow drifted gently over the hills, covering the scars of old battles. But for Mira and Varlek, everything was changing. Inside the cave, Mira wrapped a warm blanket around herself. Varlek lay nearby, resting but alert. His glowing blue eyes watched her with a calm trust she had never seen before. Mira smiled softly. You're free now, she said. No more pain. Varlek moved his head slightly, almost as if he understood. Every word. He wasn't just an alien snow leopard. He was a leader, survivor. And now, thanks to Mira, he was whole again. Outside, the Krythar tribe began to gather around. They moved quietly, but their eyes shone with respect for the human girl who had healed their king. Word would spread quickly. Krythar were proud and strong. They accepted Mira, the rest of Valtora would listen. Mira's mind raced. She thought about what her journey meant. She had come here because she heard a cry in the cold, a cry no one else could hear. And now she was part of something bigger. Suddenly, her communicator beeped. It was from the space station, Commander. Mira answered. I'm alive. And I found him. Good, the voice said. But we're picking up unusual energy readings from Valtora. Something big is happening. Mira looked outside. The sky was clear, stars shining like diamonds. But the planet felt alive, awake. Can you describe it? She asked. There's a wave of energy spreading from your location, the commander said. It looks like a signal or a call. Mira's heart skipped. It's the roar, she whispered. Yes, the commander said. It's strong enough to reach other systems. It could change everything. Mira looked at Varlek. He lifted his head and let out a low growl. Not a warning, but a song. The other Krythar answered. The sound was a promise. The promise. That pain would no longer rule their lives. The promise that healing was possible, even in a cold, harsh world. Mira realized that her journey had only begun. If she could heal one great beast, what else could she change? She looked up at the stars and smiled. This is a new beginning, she said softly. Varlek's eyes glowed brighter. Together, they would bring hope to Valtora, and maybe one day, to the stars beyond. The cold wind of Valtora blew softly as Mira stood beside Varlek at the edge of the cliff. The sun was rising, painting the sky with warm colors, orange, pink, and gold. The snow sparkled like millions of tiny stars. Mira took a deep breath. Everything had changed. She remembered the long journey that brought her here, the pain she saw in Varlek's eyes, the broken tooth glowing red, the quiet trust that grew between them. It was hard to believe that just days ago she was a stranger on this frozen world. Now, she was part of the Krythar tribe. Varlek turned his great head toward her. His glowing blue eyes held a new strength, but also kindness. You saved me, he seemed to say, without words. Mira smiled. No, she said softly. You saved me too. She reached out and touched his fur. It was warm, despite the cold air. She knew their bond was stronger than before. Behind them, the tribe gathered. The elders, the warriors, and the young all looked at Mira with respect and hope. For the first time, humans and Krythar shared a moment of true peace. The eldest, Krythar, stepped forward and spoke in their language. Mira didn't understand the words. She saw their meaning in the leader's eyes, a promise of friendship and unity. Mira felt a small vibration in her pocket. It was the communicator. From the space station, she opened it and heard the voice of the commander. Mira, we've received your signal. The galaxy is listening. They want to know more. Mira looked at Varlek and then at the wide, endless sky. We'll tell them, she said. Her mind raced with thoughts. She would not only heal Varlek, but also help the Krythar share their story. Maybe other worlds were ready for change too. She thought of all the pain, loneliness, and the fear she had seen on many planets. Maybe healing was not just about fixing bodies, but about building trust between different beings. Varlek growled softly and nudged her hand with his huge head. Mira laughed. Yes, my friend, we have work to do. Together they looked out, over the snowy valley, feeling the first warmth of a new day. The painful past was behind them. A bright future was waiting. And in that moment, under the rising sun of Valtora, a human and an alien beast made a silent promise to protect each other, to bring peace, and to never forget that even the deepest pain could lead to hope.